All right, welcome in everybody. Patriots postgame live after a big win against the Carolina Panthers. A lot to talk about after this one. And the big thing in this game, I think that should have everybody excited, is how handily they beat this Panthers team. Last week, I mentioned it in their win over the Chargers that, it was close, maybe closer than some people wanted it to be, but it wasn't. At the end of the day, they were up 2 scores. They gave up a touchdown late, but I don't think that game was ever out of hand in the fourth quarter. They were winning that game pretty clearly to me for most the majority of the end of that game. And the only real hiccup, I guess you could say, like in there was just that last touchdown. So to me, obviously they handily beat the Jets, which people don't want to give them full credit for and say, that it's the Jets and you should have beat the Jets, even though it was a blowout win. Then they come back, they beat the Chargers next week, who people are getting ready to anoint. Then they beat this Panthers team that, won last week, seemed to be getting back on track, but just couldn't handle the Patriots today and the Patriots defense today. And, it started to look like it was going to be defensive battle back and forth. None of these teams were able to really get their offenses going. And then really what happened was the Patriots made the adjustments and the Panthers didn't. And that comes down to coaching. And I think that's where you can be glad that you have Bill Belichick and other teams don't, because it's showing up right now, and it showed up for the last few games. And I think that's a big reason why they started to play better, especially near the end of the second quarter and, going into the second half. So you give a lot of credit across the board to a lot of people. One of the biggest contributors in this game has to be J.C. Jackson, which is funny. Every time J.C. Jackson plays someone with the Jets or someone who used to play for the Jets, like he turns into the best corner in the league. 2 interceptions today against Sam Darnold. He loves playing against Jets, former Jets, and whatever. So it's insane to think about the way he's played this season when it comes to those spots. But he deserves a lot of credit for what he's been getting done. And one player that they used a lot today that I wanted to talk about was Ramondre Stevenson. Was second on the team in carries behind Damian Harris, but Damian Harris really didn't play well even before the injury. 15 carries for 30 yards, had the touchdown, and Damian Harris is getting in the end zone, so I don't want to, bash him too much. And then, who knows what's going to happen whether he's injured, but his yards per carry haven't really been there, and he's had a few big ones that have been called back because of penalties, but today in particular, it wasn't there. And Ramondre Stevenson looked really, really good. So I don't know. I don't know if this is sacrilegious because people, Damian Harris has become kind of a fan favorite, and for good reason. He's been a big part of their offense this year, but I think Ramondre Stevenson is better. And I think it was really encouraging that we saw Stevenson in there so much today. The stiff arm he threw where the guy backed up, I thought he was going to go all the way into the end zone. He steps out of bounds on that play. Big catch down the sideline, too, that he made some nice moves on. He had 44 yards receiving on just 2 catches. So he was really, really good all across the board. And I wonder if we're going to see more of Ramondre Stevenson, especially you have to wonder what's going to happen with Damian Harris. I don't know if we have an update on that. But Damian Harris, it goes down at the end of this game, and you start thinking, well, is this going to be something that keeps him out for a while? Are they going to need other guys to step up? And if you do, then that's where your running back depth really comes in handy. We talked all season about how deep they were at running back. You have to trade Sony Michel because you're so deep at running back. And it's paying off because they haven't had James White. James White goes down, and now Damian Harris might go down. But you have Ramondre Stevenson, J.J. Taylor, Brandon Bolden, guys there that you trust. And it's just, you look at teams across the league are having running backs, go down. And the Titans have to bring in Adrian Peterson, and the Patriots have to, or the Titans bring in Adrian Peterson, and the Ravens bring in like Devontae Freeman and Le'Veon Bell and all these guys. And the Patriots have kind of just sat there, and they've been fine. They haven't needed to, bring in that extra guy. Maybe they do now. I wouldn't doubt that you need more than 2-3 running backs in the roster. So maybe they're bringing the extra guy. But I don't think that they're going to be bringing someone in to get a heavy workload, just a depth guy. Maybe you put him even on the practice squad at this point. But you have, 3 guys still, even with how your 2 top backs going down, really, James White, Damian Harris, you still have 3 guys that you feel very, very confident in, especially as confidence starts to really grow with Ramondre Stevenson. If he can continue to play like he did today, that's going to be great. I mentioned Damian Harris, 2 yards per carry. Ramondre Stevenson had 6.2 yards per carry. Brandon Bolden had 6.8. I don't know. Damian Harris, maybe he's a good goal line back. Maybe he just can't do a lot else besides that. Maybe that's all he is. Maybe he's just a goal line back. So, if you're going to use him in that way, great. I mean, he's had a touchdown in 5 straight games. He's had 6 touchdowns in 5 games. So if he's healthy, if you want to use him like that, go for it. But I think that Bolden and Stevenson in every other situation on the field have shown they maybe deserve to be on the field over him at this point. He had a few, obviously carries where he got blown up way behind the line of scrimmage, lost a lot of yardage there. That's not totally his fault, so I don't want to blame him too much for it. But I think there are elements here that we're already seeing from these 2 other guys that you have to feel pretty confident, pretty good about, and feel like you have something in those guys moving forward. As for the rest of the team, Mac Jones, shaky first half, obviously gets picked off by Stephon Gilmore, and it starts to look like, oh boy, is this what we're going to see here? Steph Gilmore getting his revenge game, that's what everybody's expecting it to be and expecting to call it whatever. And as it turns out, that's the offense kind of found its rhythm, and the pick didn't seem to make them waver too much or really get them to find themselves in a rut. Scored 2 touchdowns in the second quarter. One of those being the one Hunter Henry finds himself in the end zone again. Hunter Henry, by the way, a lot of people were talking about Hunter Henry as if he was a bad signing and now leads the league, tied for the league among tight ends in touchdown receptions this year. So there's no tight end in the NFL with more receiving touchdowns than Hunter Henry. So for all the people that wanted to say, Patriots shouldn't have signed this guy, he ends up being a bust of a signing. Hey, you might be right about Jonnu Smith right now, especially because he left the game injured today too. But you can't say that about Hunter Henry. Hunter Henry's been a good signing. Maybe the Patriots should have just signed Hunter Henry and gone elsewhere with the Jonnu Smith money, but beggars can't be choosers. They need good pass catchers. They need good offensive skill players. And the fact that Hunter Henry's playing the way he's playing now, even though he didn't do a ton in the game, both catches were in the first half, and the one obviously on the goal line was pretty short and all that stuff. But the fact that he's finding the end zone is good enough for me. I know it's kind of juxtaposed to what I just said about Damian Harris, but I expect more from the running game than I do the passing game, especially when you have options behind Damian Harris that I think are better, and Stevenson and Bolden. And in the passing game, you kind of need to take anything you can get. So what they're getting from Hunter Henry is absolutely good enough for me. But yeah, the offense today, they got help from J.C. Jackson with the pick 6 into the points category. So they only really put up 17. So it wasn't a ton. They've back-to-back weeks now where they've been aided on offense by a pick 6. But, whether you want to say that's maybe a little bit of luck, giving them a little break. Hey, when you have a rookie quarterback, you need your defense to play like this. You need to get points on the board for other ways. I know Mac Jones is great. I don't know if he's still the highest graded quarterback in the NFL since week 5 or if that's going to change after today since he wasn't so good. But whether it does or not, I think you have to say that Mac Jones is obviously going to go through, take his lumps a little bit. He's still a rookie, and that's just going to happen. You're just going to have to accept that. And the fact that you're picking up wins now, even when he's not having his best outings, that is very key. Like we talked about in the Buccaneers game, Mac Jones played great. You couldn't win that game. That just kind of can't happen when you have your rookie quarterback playing that well. The rest of the team needs to play well enough that you get the win in that spot. Luckily, they've kind of made up for it by playing well in 2 games where I don't think Mac Jones was at his best. So you kind of took those 2 games back. Your defense played stellar. And for as much as people are going to say this was more about Sam Darnold than the Patriots defense, I'm not going to go that far. I think the Patriots defense deserves a lot of credit for what they were able to do today. Sam Darnold, those first 3 games looked really good. Last 4, 5 hasn't so much. But even with that being the case, there's not a lot of NFL teams that are going to hold any team to 6 points, especially because guess what? Christian McCaffrey was back today. And Christian McCaffrey looked really good at times. 4 receptions, 54 yards, 14 carries, 52 yards. And I know he's just coming off the injury, so maybe he wasn't at 100%. But there were some times where, you saw he was dragging Dante Hightower on his back. Or there were some other players that I remember he was giving the stiff arm to somebody. I think it might have been J.C. Jackson, where it was like, damn, yeah, Christian McCaffrey is a strong man. It's almost deceptive how strong Christian McCaffrey is sometimes. So the fact that you were able to limit him is big too. So people might look at this Panthers offense and say, they've been bad for a number of weeks now. Well, they haven't had Christian McCaffrey for a number of weeks now. He's back. You still shut him down. That was really, really impressive. So a lot of credit to the Patriots in that regard as well. And Sam Darnold, I mean, 0 touchdowns, 3 picks, under 50% completion percentage. I mean, what more can you say about Sam Darnold going against the Patriots at this point? I mean, luckily, he's out of the AFC East, so he's not going to have to face him now for another, 40 years. If he stays in Carolina, maybe he goes somewhere else now next year if Carolina decides to move on. I don't know. But I think for Sam Darnold's sake, let's just say this should be the last time he has to play the Patriots for a while. Can you imagine Sam Darnold? Patriots have haunted him his whole career. Finally gets out of the AFC East. Finally can leave. Goes to Carolina. First season in Carolina. Who does he see on the schedule? What, other than the Patriots, right? The Patriots sitting there for him in Week 9 to haunt him again. And the ghost certainly came back to haunt Sam Darnold today with his 3 picks, 2 of which, of course, came to J.C. Jackson, like we said. So I mean that's pretty unfortunate if you're Sam Darnold. It's Gear saying Hunter Henry's a beast. Yeah, I mean, I think Hunter Henry has done exactly what the Patriots have asked him to do, and nothing more. Would you like to see more there? Would you like to see Hunter Henry, getting a few more catches, getting a few more chunk plays for your offense? Sure, I think we can have the hope that that'll come, but I don't know that that'll come right now. It seems like that's something that's still in development, but as long as he's finding the end zone for you, you got to be happy. Crimson Vet saying, I like watching this team, just don't expect too much from them this season. I don't know, Crimson Vet. I mean, we talked about this last week, and I mentioned the reasons why I feel like the Patriots have a real chance at the playoffs. The formula over, if you're including now 2 games that they just played, the Chargers, the Panthers, and the 2 games coming up, the formula was 3-1 over that stretch is what we decided you needed to be, right? So now you're 2-0. You're 2-0 in that stretch, and your next 2 games are against the Browns, who beat the Bengals today. Pretty impressive performance without Odell. And the Falcons, who won today in New Orleans. But I don't think either of those teams are daunting tasks. Like, I don't think beating either of those teams should be viewed as too difficult. So, the Falcons are still depleted without Calvin Ridley, and the Browns are still depleted. Now they had to get rid of Odell and move on there. So I think you can take advantage of these teams still. I think these teams, you can easily win these games. At the very least, there's no excuse for not going 1-1 over this next stretch. You have to go 1-1. We mentioned needing to beat good teams. You beat the Chargers, good team. You beat the Panthers. I don't know if I want to call the Panthers a good team, but they're okay. And so that in and of itself should have people encouraged. But you still have your work cut out for you. These next 2 teams, the Browns especially, are a little bit better. So if you're not going to beat the likes of the Cowboys and the likes of the Buccaneers, that's fine, but you got to beat the teams that are on your level. So the Falcons and Browns are right there. Browns could be especially important because that is a team you're competing for a wild card spot with. So you already got the tiebreaker over the Chargers. If it comes to that, the Chargers might win the AFC West rather. It might not matter. The Browns are even more key because I don't know that the Browns are winning the North. They could, I guess. It's still really up in the air. But that's a team that's going to be in the mix for the wild card. Having the tiebreaker over them would be key. You would much rather beat the Browns and lose to the Falcons if you have to pick. But obviously, you want to win both. So let's see if they can win both. That would be perfect. Because the rest of their schedule, there's still winnable games in there, but after that it gets really tough. Titans, Bills, you get the Colts in there who are playing a little better now, so maybe that game starts to concern you a little bit. But the overall over that stretch, as long as they can go 2-2 and then 1-1, they at this point, to me, 3-3 over your next 6 games from this point on is good enough. That should be good enough because that should set you up against the Jaguars and Dolphins in the final 2 weeks to get to 10 wins. And that's, it's much more possible that they make the playoffs this year at this time than it was last year. Like when the Patriots were 6-6, I don't think anybody thought they were making the playoffs. And that was for a couple of reasons. The AFC was stacked with, teams that were making that were in the hunt that had way more wins than them, 11, 10, and ended up being that the Dolphins had 10 wins and didn't even make it. So they pretty much had to win out when they were 6-6. Now it doesn't feel like that's the case at all. It feels like you can get into the AFC playoffs, maybe even at 9-8. So getting in there at 10-7, like that feels very much in the realm of possibility. I don't see any reason why they couldn't do that. So to your comment, just don't expect too much from them this season. I would say, if you're talking about the Super Bowl, like, yeah, okay, maybe you can't expect the Super Bowl from the Patriots this year. That might be asking a little bit too much. But if you're talking about, being a good team, making the playoffs and having a good season, like that's very, very much in the realm of possibility, and they shouldn't be expected to miss at this point. I said before the season that playoffs might be too much of an expectation, only because Vegas had them right on the fringe there. They had them just outside, and people said they spent so much money, they should make the playoffs. But Vegas didn't think they were going to. And the way the team was stacking up, if you were going to have a rookie quarterback and these problems on offense still, where you don't have a great wide receiver, then, and that's not even factoring in the fact that their offensive line has been battered and bruised all year, then maybe it was going to be a little bit tougher. But as it's turned out, they're in a good position now. And I think that expecting the playoffs might not be too much after all, and that they should at least, they're going to be in the mix at this point. I mean, 5-4, even if you lose your next, even if you go 1-4 over the next few games, and I don't know, maybe that's a little too much, but if you go 1-3 or something like that, and you end up being 6-8, like I still don't know if it's out of it. Like, this team is good, and I don't expect that from them. I think they're gonna win a lot of games, and I think that we're gonna see that this season, or whatever the math would be. I don't know. I'm getting too far ahead of myself. They're 5-4 right now. 1-3 be 6-7. So that could you're still in the hunt at that point. So that's really good. It's Gear saying Wynn needs to get his shit together because the offensive line is not playing good enough, and that's another point that people have been talking about. Like, I mentioned the offensive line being battered and bruised. Trent Brown really needs to come back. The Patriots really need Trent Brown. He'd be such a difference maker. We mentioned like the yards per carry and stuff like that for some of the running backs. Trent Brown would do wonders for this team right now if he was in there. Maybe it allows Isaiah Wynn to move to guard or something like that. If it does, that could be potentially helpful. But I don't know what more to say about Isaiah Wynn at this point. They probably shouldn't have picked up his team option for next season, because now he's on the books for quite a bit of money. I don't know that contract's tradable. So that might have been a poor decision on their part, because now you're stuck with them at a bigger number than you want for the next 2 years. But that's a move that they might look back on and say, we kind of regret that one. We wish that we had instead, waited on that option, or maybe just outright declined it and gone forward with what we had and tried to figure out on offensive line, because it seems like that's kind of worked out for them in certain times. And, kind of whether it be elevating Marcus Cannon to starter way back when they did that, or, finding Trent Brown off the street, or, bringing Trent Brown back, whatever it ends up being, drafting Michael Onwenu, who's played great. Like, it seems like they always eventually figure it out. So the fact that they decided, we're going to be willing to pony up a little bit of money to bring Isaiah Wynn back on his final year of his deal on the option, even though really you could have easily just let him walk and put Michael Onwenu there and had Trent Brown. You just brought Trent Brown back. It's perplexing to me, especially because it's not like he was great before this. He was maybe okay at times, still kind of didn't live up to people's expectations. But, I found it really surprising they decided, Isaiah Wynn, yeah, that's a guy we want on the roster for quite some time moving forward. So that's a little weird. JC, it's Gear saying, apparently JC had strep throat this week. It might sound like I have strep throat. My throat's a little sore. I've been screaming like all week. So that's why that's why I sound weird. But JC stepping up with strep throat, that's definitely something worth talking about. I mean, if that was the case, I hope it wasn't contagious, didn't give it to anybody or anything of that like. But hey, that's it's still a stellar performance by him to be able to do that, play through his illness there a little bit, and have the game he had, because he was great today. Obviously, the pick six in and of itself. Like, if you're right, if he had strep throat and he was able to bring that one back to the house and didn't lose stamina or anything like that, that's pretty impressive. That's an athlete right there. So absolutely shout out to JC Jackson for an absolutely incredible performance. Saying that the Jags helped us out too. It's Gear. I'll say this: that the Jaguars beating the Bills and the Josh Allen thing, which is just so weird. And I said this like before, Josh Allen being both in the league and both pretty good. Like, I always thought, well, it's kind of like interesting, but I don't know that it's not that important. It's just like, like maybe Josh Allen will sack Josh Allen one day. And wouldn't that be cool? Like, maybe it'll happen. And then he did it today, and people said, oh, there it is. Yeah, Josh Allen sacking Josh Allen. We've been waiting on that one. So, you can check that one off the list. Yep, it happened, people. So, woohoo, laugh about it, have a little good joke about it. And then Josh Allen intercepts Josh Allen, and you're like, what the heck is going on? And then he recovers a fumble, and it's like, from Josh Allen, and it's like, what is that? Like, it felt so weird. Like, I never expected the fact that there being two Josh Allens in the league to have this kind of an impact on Sunday. I never thought that would happen like that. But yeah, as far as the Bills losing, I don't know. Like, are we still? I guess we have to still talk about the division. I mean, what is that? Was that the Bills' second? I think that was their third loss, huh? Because the Bills. But did they lose last week too? Or is that another week? So that is their third loss. And yeah, they lost the Titans game on Monday night. That's what happened. And they're the loss this season. Came against the Steelers opening night. So I guess now the Patriots are only a half game back in the AFC East. So what do you know? Just like that, 1.5 games back, and suddenly you are, I think. There's 3 weeks now between your game against the Bills, and you have a half game to make up. So that would be interesting if they were able to make that up. Let me see what the Bills' schedule is, because I believe the Patriots have the later bye. The Bills already had theirs. I don't think the Patriots don't have a bye for a while here. So for the Bills, their next 3 are Jets, Colts, and Saints. So pretty winnable games for them. So was the Jaguars game, but that aside, Jets game they should easily win. Colts and Saints might be harder. Maybe they drop one of those, and then suddenly, as long as you stay within the half game, I mean, and by the way, it's not going to change from the half game. I mean, it's until the Bills game, they're going to be their buys after that. So it's not going to be a full game. There'll be no tiebreaker, even though tiebreaker wouldn't matter at that point, because just whoever wins that game is going to have the tiebreaker. But if you're within a half game, that game's for the division lead in 3-4 weeks, whatever it is now. You want to say 4 weeks, I guess, maybe. But if that's the case, hey, let's do it. That's going to be an exciting game. It'll be probably, I mean, the Buccaneers Patriots game was big for other reasons, but in terms of the Patriots, their biggest game that is about football and not about kind of off the field storylines in a couple of years here since their last playoff game against the Titans. So if you go into Buffalo and that's your biggest football reasons game since since January of 2019, I guess. So that's a long time ago now. Feels like forever, right? But yeah, that is going to be something. I did not expect the division to be in play this year. I don't think many people did. At least not after the first handful of weeks when you saw how the Bills were playing and how you were playing. But things have certainly turned on. The division, I suppose, has certainly turned on its head over the last 3 weeks here. So maybe it is. Maybe we can start talking about the division. Interesting point you bring up, Itzky. Your thoughts on Dante Hightower, because Dante Hightower was not great today. I mean, I didn't notice him a ton, but I did. The part where I did really notice him, and I wanted to give McCaffrey credit because McCaffrey's a strong guy. Totally not disrespecting what Christian McCaffrey is as a player, one of the best running backs in the NFL, and his strength was very, very clear a number of times today. But he dragged Dante Hightower for like 6-7 yards at one point, and I was like, man, Dante Hightower getting dragged by Christian McCaffrey. I get Christian McCaffrey stiff arming J.C. Jackson, like that I can take, like, but Dante Hightower, like he's supposed to make those tackles against any running back. I don't care who the running back is, unless it's like Derrick Henry or someone like that. So yeah, that was a little odd. Hightower, look, I don't think I need to say it. I think it's pretty clear right now. He is not himself, really. He's not 100% of what he was before his injury, and it hasn't come along. He's kind of in the twilight of his career. He's older now. I just don't expect much from Dante Hightower. I think if they tried to use him as, a pass rusher, then he might be better at that than he is at playing middle linebacker at this point, but unfortunately, they have enough pass rush. They don't really need to use him there. I mean, Matt Judon's killing it there, and of course Barrymore up front. Not that he's in a spot Hightower would ever play anyway, but they have enough up front. They don't need Hightower in that spot. And they, like you said, Van Noy. I saw you even say Van Noy. So, that's not really where they put him at this point. So I don't know what the answer with Hightower is. I don't really think you have any better options unless you're planning on playing a little lighter with maybe Adrian Phillips in the box, Kyle Duggar in the box more, like which they've done this season. But if you're looking to take Hightower out of the lineup, like that's the way to me that I would expect they might do it. So as far as like what I'm doing with Hightower moving forward, again, unless they're going lighter, and I really don't expect that to be something that Bill Belichick would do. Like Bill Belichick seems to have been going away from that for a while, not going with the trend of the NFL. He's done a little bit more, certainly with Phillips and Duggar, but fully committing to that kind of defense, I don't see it. So I think Dante Hightower is still probably going to play a role on this team. I want to go through some of the other things, notes from this game, as far as Damian Harris, and I'm just checking Twitter to make sure I didn't miss any of the updates after the game. Looks like Jonnu Smith going down. There's still some interesting things with him. Ramondre Stevenson, it sounds like he might have been a little bit hurt too, saying jogged off the field under his own power after having remained down following the run. So maybe he's dealing with something now too, which would be unfortunate. So it's one thing if you don't have Damian Harris, and I don't mean it's one thing, like that would obviously be a big loss, but if you don't have Harris and Stevenson, that's going to hurt a lot. That's that's going to be something that would really be a cause for concern. But the fact that this team has won 3 in a row, like I thought it was possible. I would have taken 2-1 over this stretch, lost to the Chargers, but 3-0 is incredibly impressive. And at this point, I think you have to kind of expect them to keep it going. It's going to be hard when they get to that spot. Like if they lose to the Browns, are you going to blame this Patriots team for not winning 4 games in a row? I mean, that's a tough ask. It's really tough if you're asking a team to like this level. It's like the Patriots aren't exactly the Chiefs here, or the Patriots of old, or anybody like that. And the Chiefs haven't been too good this season as it is. But you get what I mean. They're not this dominant NFL team anymore, at least not right now. So I feel like coming in, if people came in next week, they lose to the Browns, and people were like, you really got on. I'm like, you were on a roll, and you had you had this thing going, and we really starting to believe in you, and then you lose to the Browns. It's like the Browns are a good team, and they're 3-0. Like you can't expect them to win every game. 3-1, I think you'd have to take, and really it's going to come down to what they end up being at the end of the season. I know we have to talk about them in the meantime, but beating the Browns is important for your playoff hopes. But I don't think it's a make or break. I think if you lose to the Browns, that kind of puts the Browns in a position where they might be able to win that division. I mean, right now the Ravens lead at 6-2, so they have some ground to make up there. The Ravens haven't had their bye yet, so maybe they can hope to do that. Vikings beating them would have helped them today, but that didn't happen. But I still think that that AFC North is tough. So you need that Browns game for that tiebreaker, but I'm not going to bury the season if it isn't, because they just won 3 straight. I think that's silly, but it certainly would help. I still stand by what I said. If you go 1-1, if you go 3-3 over your next 6 games, you're making the playoffs. Like you're not losing to the Jaguars. I don't care what happened to the Bills today, and you're not losing to the Dolphins twice. With how bad they've been this year, you are not losing 2 games to the Dolphins this year. You have to at least split that. If the Patriots don't split that, I'd be shocked. So to me, this should be kind of easy. Like they should easily make the playoffs at this point. 3-3 is not a lot to ask, and I don't think 2-0 at the end of the season is a lot to ask. So that's all it is. That's all you have to do. Pretty simple. It's pretty simple math, pretty simple formula. It's funny because their competition in the wild card, and it's starting to stack up to be kind of a competition, but all of it is really coming from just the two divisions, the AFC West and the AFC North. And those teams are going to start picking on each other. Those teams all have to play each other. So they're going to start picking off each other one by one, and that kind of leaves the path clear for you. I mean, the great thing about this team is they play the Browns, and then that's it for those two divisions. They don't play after this Browns game next week. They don't play anyone from the North or the West in the AFC for the rest of the year. It's 3 games against the AFC South, and then your own division, and the Falcons are in there, and that's pretty much it. And the Jaguars too. If I mentioned the Colts, Jaguars, you get the 3 AFC South teams. So it's kind of easy. Like that's why people said before the season, like Patriots' schedule is kind of easy. Yeah, it kind of is, and so this should be easily a playoff team. You know what? I'm even going to go as far as to say lock it in. I am 100% confident, 100% the Patriots are making the playoffs this season. There is no question in my mind at this point. No doubt, not going to happen. They're not going to miss the playoffs. There is no chance that happens. It sets up too nicely. It sets up way too nicely. You can lose both of the Bills games. You can lose both games to the Bills. You can lose to the Titans without Derrick Henry. And if you beat the Falcons, if you beat the Falcons, the Browns, and the Colts, even if you lose all those games, like you're in. Yeah, so that's how it's setting up this season for them. It's kind of wild, but I didn't think we'd find ourselves here. But that's where it is. And it's your final thing, saying I forgot to take that other comment down, but I'm saying can't believe we lost that first game versus Miami, and that's why the last game against Miami, to me, it's like there is just no way. There's no way they lose that game. And I know we've said that about games against Miami at the end of the season in the past. I know. But that there was no question they were making the playoffs in those spots before, right? There was no doubt about it to Bill Belichick. Because you had Tom Brady. I mean, where you were in the division, the rest of the division sucked. Like, there was no chance. So I am so confident that if the Patriots are in the spot where they need to beat Miami in week 17, like Bill Belichick's treating that like a playoff game, which he has not treated games against Miami in the past. Like it was the Steven Jackson game. The game plans have been kind of washed as throwaways. Save the arsenal, the big stuff that you're going to break out for the playoffs. Not anymore. Empty the cupboard against Miami. Do everything you have to do to get the playoffs. That's what they're going to do, and that's why I trust them to beat them. And I just can't imagine, with how bad Miami's been this year, that they're going to lose both of those. There's no way. So, yes, you're right. I can't believe it, too. I am shocked that they let themselves lose to this Miami team that has been so bad this year. It's been terrible. They've been awful. One of their only wins this year is against you. So now they beat you and the Texans, and that's it. Miami stinks. So the fact that they beat the Patriots stinks, and Damian Harris shouldn't have fumbled the ball. Another reason why I might like Ramondre Stevenson and Brandon Bolden a little more than Damian Harris right now. But I trust it. I still trust it at the end of the year. I don't think they're going to let that one get away from them. If they are, then the legend of Miami, coming out of nowhere to ruin New England's season, whether it was the home field against the Broncos that they cost them, whether it was the bye week that led to playing the Titans in the first round, they cost them. Now, could they cost them a playoff chance at the end of the year? I doubt it. So I think if you go 0-2 against Miami when they're going to finish like 5-12, like you can't do that. You can't do that. And I don't think they will. I trust it. Maybe I'm jinxing it, but I trust it. I don't think that's going to happen. Divine saying the defense still has to do better. Not convinced. Divine, what do you mean? They held the Panthers to 6 points today. What more do you want? I'll give you that the Panthers were down there in their territory a few times, and J.C. Jackson saved them with picks. Okay, so I'll give that to you. But the Panthers aren't a bad team; they're a mediocre team. They're not bad. So what more could you have asked from them against this Panthers team? And by the way, like, you might say, well, the picks bailed them out. Well, the defense gets credit for those picks. Like, if they're the ones making the interceptions, they're the ones creating the turnovers. That's still a part of defense. That's still what it's all about. So, getting 3 picks in this game, holding the Panthers to 6 points, even with Christian McCaffrey, arguably, when he is fully healthy, the best offensive skill player in the National Football League. I don't think you can ask for much else. Like, that is top tier NFL defense, and that's what I think they played today. So saying this defense still has to do better, I don't know. I'm not buying it. I think the defense has been doing better. I think they're doing exactly what they need to do. They need to keep it up. They need to still play this level for the rest of the season, or at the very least for I don't know. There's 10 games or no 8 games at this point left. They need to play this way for at least 6 of those 8. Sure. Yep. 6 of the 8. They need to play really, really well. But maybe even 5. I might mark it down to 5. 5 of the 8. But as long as they do that, they should be good. They should be all set. Like, it shouldn't be too much of a worry. This defense is clearly good enough. I think they proved that today. Now, if Jalen Mills is getting burned every other play, you're expected to be better than that, Jalen Mills, at this point. Okay, before there were perfect points this season where Jalen Mills was playing bad, and we said, that's not going to cut it. Like, you absolutely you can't have Jalen Mills out there now. Okay, you can, but let's see how long it'll last. Let's see how long he can play well. Let's see how long he can survive. And if he plays bad, we blame him a little bit more than we blame the team for putting him in that spot, because now it seems like they can survive with him there. So you got to continue to do that. All right, guys, I think that's going to be it for the stream. Thank you all for tuning in. As always, I was going to say go check out my NFL picks that I posted earlier today. You can go see how I did. I haven't counted it all up yet. I think I did okay at least. Still a few more games, obviously. Monday night, Sunday night, and the rest of these 4 o'clock games that'll decide the record. But I think I did okay. I don't know. I'll go back and look, but you can see how I did for yourself. So check that out. Celtics post-game, pre-game. You guys know how that's going to go. That's going to be throughout this week as well. We'll have the Celtics Power Hour back this week too. So be sure to tune in for that with myself and Ev. Haven't completely decided what day that's going to be on. We haven't talked about it quite yet and set a date in stone. But it does look like Tuesday could be a good spot for it. Potentially Monday. But we'll figure that out over the next coming days. It should be in the next 2 days. I'll say that. I doubt that it doesn't come in the next 2 days, but we'll talk about that when it comes time to talk about that. So thank you guys, as always, for watching. Expect it Tuesday around, I want to say 5, 6, 7. It's probably 6 o'clock will be a good time to set there. So be sure to tune in for that. Once again, guaranteeing the Patriots make the playoffs. Guaranteeing it 100%. Lock it in right here. All they need to do is really play 500 football over the next 6 games. And that should be easy enough. So thank you guys once again. And we'll catch you on the next stream, next Patriots post-game stream too. So be sure to tune in for that.